is who you are.
My name is Sebastien Dupont, and I practice yoga for many years now, and teaching for also a couple of years. Here in Moscow, but also before in Switzerland, in France, and in different places with different students of different conditions, and so that's what I'm doing.
And where you come from?
I'm French originally, but I already left France for a couple of years.
And why did you come to Russia?
Oh, I always wanted to live in Russia. It was really a choice, and in 2012 I decided to settle down here in Moscow. And from this time I never regret to settle down in Moscow.
Great. And when your practice yoga started? How it was? Why you started to practice yoga?
My practice started when I was 16 years old. So I was in France, I was at school, and I didn't know even how and where to find a teacher. So I was practicing on my own with books that I found in the library next to my home place. And slowly, little by little, I tried to find some teachers, some more informations, and some yoga classes. So that's how I started.
And why?
I was originally more interested by meditation, and I was trying to practice Zen meditation when I was very young, but I was too young and I didn't have a proper teacher for this. And I felt that I needed something a little bit physical, something with the body, and that's why I was looking in the direction of yoga, and that's why I started Hatha Yoga with the teachings of Shivananda and the Belgian teacher, which is André van Lisbeth. I don't know if he's known in Russia, I think no.
And did your family support you, or somebody around you practice yoga too?
Actually not. At the beginning I was entirely alone practicing, and after in the yoga classes I met some other students, and after I met some teachers, and I made my little yoga network like this, alone.
So it's very interesting because it was your own choice and you started with books, not with a teacher, so it's very difficult.
Yeah, I've always been very psychologically very independent in my choices. It's not that I want to feel separated from the others, but I've always been like this. I know what I want to do, and I do it. I don't need a group of people to show me what is good for me.
And what was your practice regular when you was practicing alone?
Yeah, quite quickly I tried to practice every day, a little bit, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and after a little bit more. When I started to practice really regularly, it was like passion. So I was reading all the possible books about yoga, and my dream was to go to India to practice yoga. Really the birthplace of this discipline.
And did you have a teacher, a person who you can call teacher, who teach you yoga?
I had many teachers, and all of them were good for a specific aspect of yoga. For instance, I had a very good teacher for the positions, which was Joël Potret in France, next to my birthplace. I had also a very good teacher in Lyon, Michel Alibert, which was very good for the psychological aspect. Actually, he was a Christian and yogi at the same time. And he was quite old. He was already more than 60, 65 when I met him. It was already 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And yeah, he was interested by energetic yoga, but not in an esoteric sense, not with the chakras, not directly with this, but just how you can feel the energy in your body, in your yoga practice. What is energy concretely? What you can feel without starting to dream about the Kundalini and all this stuff.
And as I understand, you practice in different countries.
Yes, because I was living in different countries, and I practiced in different countries with different teachers. I think now with the fact that the yoga is really popular all around the world makes that you can find good teachers in any country. I met a lot of nice teachers here in Moscow. When I was in Austria also, I met a couple of nice nice persons.
Mm. How do people feel about yoga in different countries?
Of course, the way people practice yoga depends a little bit on the mentality of the country. I would not say that it's the same everywhere, of course. You want me to? It's a very interesting topic, but I will need a few minutes to explain for each country. For instance, in France, we had a very traditional way of practicing yoga. Very traditional in terms of contact with the classical text, with the tradition of Hatha Yoga. And it was a little bit, we say that the French yoga is a bit boring because it's for old ladies and people are sitting. But actually, it's how Hatha Yoga looks traditionally. If you go to India, most of the time Hatha Yoga is like this. But this kind of French yoga or serious yoga, it was people who study the text, and some of them are studying Sanskrit, etc. Has been almost killed by the modern yoga and very physical, like vinyasa or this ashtanga. And so that was the French yoga originally, and now of course you find a lot of vinyasa, physical stuff. In Austria, it was a little bit like in Germany, people very serious with their practice, with the way of eating, with the way of practicing. So also interesting. I was also practicing and teaching a little bit in India, so I was in contact with a different state of mind. And in Russia, what can I say about Russian people and yoga? I'm here for a long time now, so it's difficult to say, because for me it's going to be normal. I'm used to it now. But I can say that for any kind of discipline, Russian people, when they start something, they really go. They don't listen to themselves too much, and they just go. And I've met very impressive people in their practice, in the physical investment, in terms of how many hours a day, yoga classes starting at 4:30 in the morning, these kind of things. And also an interest of Russian people for the esoterical aspect of yoga. Very, very often you speak with Russian people and directly they start to think about Kundalini, about chakras, which is personally not my approach, because I think these kind of things can be felt, can be experienced, but after many, many years of practice. And it's not when you open a book, you are in a different world, you are in these daydreamings about yoga. I think that's not very useful. You can lose many years studying the colors of the chakras, the mantras and everything without having any experience. So it can be lost of time. So that's just to tell you two different aspects. One which is for me good, the investment and the strength in the practice. And one which is not my approach, but also something I can consider respectable in a way.
So you are more for physical practice and real experience.
What is my approach of yoga? I try to, you know that we say that Hatha Yoga is the physical yoga. But there is a misunderstanding about this word physical yoga. When Hatha Yoga is defined as physical yoga, it doesn't mean that it has to be 100 push-ups, 10 minutes in the side plank. This is not what it means, physical yoga. Physical yoga means yoga that is using your body to get a spiritual result. So it can be a posture that you hold 3 hours, asana traditionally. You master an asana when you can sit for 1, 2, 3 hours. And this is the physical part of yoga also. And this inner cleanings is also part of the physical yoga, because it's in opposition to Raja Yoga, for instance, which is more based on pranayama and meditation. So Hatha Yoga is using the body. We clean the body, we use the asana, of course, on some positions of the body, but not physical in terms of sweating or eliminating toxins. It was not the definition of Hatha Yoga. So I've been influenced, and I use some movements of modern yoga in my classes, because I think there are some interesting things also on the side. But I try to keep the contact with what really Hatha Yoga is. Mostly pranayama, meditation, and work on the body. Yeah.
And what is your personal interest in yoga also? Which classes do you teach? What did you study in yoga?
So, this is the deepest possible question. Why do I like and why do I love yoga? I would say that yoga for me is the discipline of cleaning the way to a peace of mind. It's not peace of mind, or maybe the state of yoga is peace of mind. Yoga practice is cleaning of the body, cleaning of the breath, and cleaning of the mind. You don't create wisdom, you don't create the sun, you don't create but you can remove the clouds in a way when you practice. This is the other picture of a pond full of weeds, and you just with your hands you spread them outside and you can see maybe the bottom of the pond. So that's what we do in yoga practice, to try to clean ourselves, to see through something through.
So you teach only Hatha Yoga?
Yes, I teach only Hatha Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
This is already so vast, so immense that I don't have time to study something else for the moment.
Mm-hmm. And once you told that you study Sanskrit.
Yes.
Can you tell about this, please?
As soon as you start practicing yoga and reading a little bit of books about yoga, you will meet some Sanskrit terms, asana, pranayama, all these things, and you can. After a few years, you will observe that you know a lot of Sanskrit words, and then sometimes, it was the case for me, you want to go a little bit further and you want to understand Yoga Sutra, for instance, something a little bit short, which is not so easy to understand already, or the Bhagavad Gita you want to read, and then you try to learn the alphabet because it's funny, and at the same time you can read Hindi after, so it's good at the same time. And it was like this for me, and then I decided that I really want to learn Sanskrit a few years ago, and honestly I didn't think it was so difficult. I know that Russian language is difficult, but Sanskrit is a little bit similar in the structure and more difficult, I think. So it's very difficult, and a lot of times, a lot of tenses, a lot of padijya, a lot of cases, declinations, and but that's very exciting when you start to understand a little bit of what you read and why it has been written like this. For me, it's connected with the practice. I consider that the time I spend every day to study Sanskrit is a part of my practice, because you read spiritual things, spiritual scriptures, slowly try to understand the way the words are put, or sometimes you just have a big word and you don't know where to cut doing this, you are in contact with the teachings at the same time. So, for me, it's something spiritual. And when you learn Sanskrit, you have to learn how to pronounce it. And when you learn how to pronounce it, you have to learn how to sing in Sanskrit, because most of the texts, they are written to be sung. It's not like an singing opera, but you have to learn the different versification, like Anushtuba and all this. So the way it's written, the number of syllables, how to pronounce it and how to sing it. So you are automatically singing some mantras, some things. Sanskrit is a very spiritual language, and it was the language of the spiritual ceremonies, rituals from very, very ancient times. So it's very connected with yoga, with spirituality.
So since you have started to learn Sanskrit, your practice became more deeper.
It added another aspect to my practice. I don't want to say that I needed Sanskrit to go deeper. To go deeper in the practice, you need to be honest. That's the only thing you need. when you start to practice really for yourself, in fact, you are really honest. And as long as you practice to impress somebody or to prove to yourself something or to gain some powers or even to hold the breath for a very long time or these things, you are not honest. And I was not honest, and I'm not 100% honest even now, so that's the way I want to practice, to find the center. So, but when I say to practice for yourself, it's really not something that has to trap yourself into your thoughts, into your inner world. It's really to find, so that's the message of yoga, that when you find your real self, you realize it's the same as yourself, the self, what they call Brahman, Atman, Brahman. So that's the direction of the yoga practice.
And how does your practice, your personal practice, differs from your teaching practice?
It's a good question, and I must admit that it's quite different. It's quite different. And you cannot, for instance, very often I just sit down, and my whole practice is to sit down and to practice pranayama, a few bandha, mudra, and that's it, and meditation. But when you teach in yoga school, you have very, very different people coming, and most of them, I would say 70-80% of them, they come for physical practice. Something to improve their strength, flexibility, to feel better, because it's also good to feel good. And if you ask them to sit down for 45 minutes, 1 hour, they will not continue. They will do it 1 time, 2 times, and after they will think it's boring, or I feel my back after, I feel my legs. So you have to teach in a different way. Or I would say, no, the other way. You have to practice in a different way than you teach to beginners. It has to be different. If you come back home and you start to do sun salutations non-stop and only physical practice after, no, it means you miss the point. So the way I teach is to start with physical practice. After, when the group is stable and I start to know people, I put a little bit of pranayama here, a little bit of meditation here. And after, today we don't do so many positions, we do a little bit less, and we try to hold. And like this it works. And people continue because they understand slowly what is yoga about. And I had many students who were very, very interested by physical side of yoga. Very physical, even sometimes my classes are quite physical. And now, when they practice on their own, they do only upside down positions and pranayama. And I'm very proud of them.
What made you teach people?
For a very long time, I didn't want to teach. That's why I was practicing for many, many years without teaching. I even thought that I really will never teach yoga before I found the perfection or the wisdom, something like this. And slowly I realized that because I was doing another job, it was not that I need to eat and that's the only thing I could do or something like this. I was already doing another job before, and at a certain point I felt that I had something to transmit, to give to people, and I wanted also to be totally involved into yoga, to practice and to teach what I practice, and not to have a third activity which is sometimes quite different. And I wanted to be 100% into yoga, and I felt that maybe I have something to transmit, even if it's not perfection, if I'm not sage, or that I can wait my whole life to be a sage and I will never teach anybody anything. And I think some yoga techniques can be taught to people, even if you're not a saint or a great yogi, because sometimes they will be better than you in a few years, because they will understand the practice and they will practice very, very intensively, and after they will find maybe a better teacher if they are very good, and you say bye-bye, good luck, and it's perfect. That's how it has to be.
And what principles do you have when you're teaching people? Is it accent on a physical practice? Or developing some asanas, or just changing people?
It depends the level of the group. It may seem a paradox, but with beginners I make it much more physical. So that's why people think I'm very interested by the physical part of yoga, because I want to be sure that their body is strong enough after to make more technical positions like backward bendings, or to hold on the headstand for a long time, or even pranayama if you don't have wide chest or shoulders open, or these kind of things. It's not very comfortable and not very effective. It will be more effective if you practice the postures first and after the pranayama. So yeah, very physical at the beginning and less physical with time. Sorry, I have to switch off this because it's okay.
Okay, and the last question, please tell me the definition of yoga for you.
There are two things. That's the problem of the word yoga. You know the definition, maybe everybody knows the definition of the word yoga, which is to put together, to link something to something else, it's huge in Sanskrit. But when we speak about yoga, we speak at the same time about some techniques, some practice, some positions, some techniques of breathing, etc., and a state. So there is the practice of yoga, and here you can find many different teachers, many techniques, some of them work, some of them don't work probably, but and you have a state. So the state of union is something very interesting to speak about, more interesting than to speak about this technique and that technique. So the state of yoga, I would say that here also you have two, it's a bit complicated, but you have two steps. So the first yoga you have to make is inside yourself, between the body, or what you think to be the body and the mind, which looks separated, and sometimes the mind is here, the body is here, the breath is there, and these three elements, the body, the mind, and the breath, will, with the practice, they will join themselves. They will get closer to each other, and they will join themselves at the end, in the center. So it's a movement inward. So that's what I call the inner state of yoga. When you feel after a good yoga class, you feel that you are more yourself. You are one single person. But as you can imagine, there is a contradiction, because you feel that you are a person. It means you miss the real yoga, which is the union with the outside world. And that's the second step. So second step, when you make peace inside yourself, peace between the body, the mind, and the breath, then you can go toward the next step, which is to feel the unity with the others, with the other living beings, especially human beings. It's quite difficult. It's maybe more difficult than with animals sometimes. And so that's the great yoga, when you start to feel. And the first yoga is leading to the second one, because if you're not peaceful with yourself, you cannot have compassion or you will have an immense compassion for one person and no compassion at all for somebody else. So there is a disbalance. Or you cannot listen to people because you are too much into your thoughts, or you are too sure of yourself because you know everything and you are not able to listen to somebody. All these problems are solved when you have inner peace and inner silence, and automatically there is an opening that is created.